I'm Quinn Harper, a 29-year-old data analyst from Seattle, and this is my story of surviving a betrayal that cut deeper than any corporate backstab. Christmas should have been warm lights and family laughter, but when I came home to Boise, I found Grandma Margaret eating cold leftovers and a note that shattered my world. I just earned a $20,000 bonus from a 3-year AI project. Sweat and tears poured into every line of code, meant to pay for my beloved grandma's heart surgery. I tore the note from the fridge. My father, Richard's scrawl made me sick. He and my sister Chloe stole it all for a failed Reno real estate scam, taunting, "Quinn, you'll forgive us, like always." What happens next is a fight for justice you won't believe. Subscribe, share where and when you're watching, and stick around. This gets wild. I'm Quinn Harper, 29 years old, a data analyst scraping by in the tech grind of Seattle. I'm telling you this story not because I want pity, but because I survived it, like a witness to my own wreckage, piecing it together after the storm. 3 years ago, I drove 8 hours from Seattle to Boise, Idaho, for Christmas, my heart buzzing with the kind of hope only the holidays can spark. I just scored a $20,000 bonus from a game-changing AI project at work, a project I'd bled for. Late nights debugging code, arguing with colleagues, pitching to executives who barely looked up from their phones. That money wasn't just a paycheck. It was a lifeline, meant to cover my grandma Margaret's heart surgery. She's the one who raised me through my parents' screaming matches, the one who taught me to stand tall when the world tried to knock me down. The drive was a blur of winter rain and snow, the kind that sticks to your windshield like bad memories. I had the radio cranked, belting out Jingle Bells and those sappy Bing Crosby tunes, my voice cracking as I tried to drown out the stress of work. Just get home, I told myself, gripping the steering wheel, hug Grandma, eat Mom's pecan pie, and let the holiday magic fix everything. I pictured our old wooden house aglow with Christmas lights, the tree twinkling in the living room, the smell of gingerbread cookies filling the air. My family wasn't perfect. Hell, we were a mess. But Christmas was the one time we got it right. Or so I thought. As I turned onto our street, the familiar sights of Boise's snow-dusted lawns hit me like a warm memory. The neighbors' houses were decked out, Mr. Jensen's over-the-top reindeer display, the Patel's icicle lights twinkling like stars. But our house? It was a black hole. No lights, no wreath, just Dad's rusted Buick parked crooked in the driveway, a thin layer of snow cloaking its hood. My stomach knotted, a warning I ignored as I grabbed my bags. The weight of gifts for everyone, Mom, Dad, my sister Chloe, pulling at my shoulders. I'd spent months saving for those gifts, picking out a vintage scarf for Mom, a leather-bound journal for Dad's endless business ideas, and a sleek sketchbook for Chloe's art dreams. For Grandma, I'd gone all out. A custom photo album of our best moments, her and me laughing over burnt pancakes or gardening in the backyard. That bonus, though, that was for her heart, her literal lifeline. I pushed open the front door, my boots crunching on the unshoveled walk. "I'm home," I called, my voice echoing in the stillness. No answer. No smell of baking cookies. No blaring TV with Dad's football games. The living room was bare. No tree, no garland. Just a stale, closed-up smell, like the house had been abandoned. My heart started pounding, a dull thud in my chest. I dropped my bags, the gift paper crinkling, and followed a faint clink to the kitchen. There was Grandma Margaret, sitting alone at the chipped wooden table, her frail frame hunched over a Tupperware of cold mashed potatoes, the kind left over from a meal nobody cared about. The neon light above buzzed, casting harsh shadows on her lined face, her silver hair pulled back in a loose bun. She looked up, her eyes a mix of sadness and steel, like she'd been waiting for me to walk into this nightmare. "Grandma, where the hell is everyone?" I asked, my voice catching as I scanned the empty room. The knot in my stomach tightened, a sick feeling spreading like ice. She didn't answer right away, just pointed a trembling finger at the fridge. Taped under a tacky Christmas tree magnet was a note, the kind that changes everything. I stepped closer, my boots squeaking on the linoleum, and felt the air shift, like the moment before a car crash in a movie. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to walk into the kind of betrayal that cracks you open, exposes every raw nerve, and forces you to decide who you really are. As I reached for that note, I wasn't just Quinn Harper, the tech worker with a bonus and a dream of a cozy Christmas. I was a survivor, stepping into the first scene of a story that would burn me down and build me back up. Looking back, I see that moment as the opening shot of my own film. A close-up of my hand, trembling, reaching for the note. The kitchen's cold light flickering like a warning. I'd spent years in the corporate grinder, dodging office politics, proving my worth through data and deadlines. But nothing prepared me for this. I thought betrayal was something you faced at work. Colleagues stealing credit, bosses making empty promises. I never imagined it would come from my own blood, from the people I'd trusted since I was a kid, drawing stick figures of our family on construction paper. Grandma's eyes followed me, steady and knowing, as if she had seen this script before. "Read it, Quinn," she said softly, her voice cutting through the silence. And with that, I stepped off the cliff, not knowing if I'd fall or fight. The fluorescent light in the kitchen flickered, casting jagged shadows across Grandma Margaret's face as I stood frozen, her words, "Read it, Quinn," hanging in the air like a guillotine. My boots squeaked on the linoleum as I stepped toward the fridge, the tacky Christmas tree magnet glinting mockingly. I ripped the note down, my fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from a gut-deep dread that felt like stepping into a horror movie where you know the monster's behind the door. The paper was thin, crumpled at the edges, my dad Richard's scrawl as familiar as a childhood scar. I read it, and the world tilted, like a camera lurching off its tripod. "Quinn," it began, "we had to act fast. A real estate deal in Reno, our chance to save the family name. Took the $20,000 from your account. It's gone south, but we're fixing it. Be back in 3 days. Grandma's fine. You'll forgive us, like always. Love, Dad and Chloe." My breath caught, a sharp stab in my chest. The $20,000, my bonus, earned through 3 years of grinding at a Seattle tech firm, nights hunched over code, fighting for my AI project in boardrooms, was gone. Meant for Grandma's heart surgery, it was her lifeline, and they'd stolen it for some half-baked scheme. "What the actual fuck?" I whispered, my voice breaking as I crumpled the note in my fist. I turned to Grandma, her frail frame still at the table, a spoonful of cold mashed potatoes halfway to her mouth. Her eyes, sharp despite the lines etched around them, locked onto mine. "They took it all, didn't they?" she said, not a question, but a confirmation, her voice steady as granite. I nodded, my throat tight, and sank into a chair, the wood creaking under me. The kitchen smelled of stale food and betrayal, the silence heavy with the absence of my family's usual chaos. I opened my banking app, fingers shaking as I tapped the screen. The balance stared back, 47,032. They'd drained $19,950, leaving me with nothing but pocket change. "That was for your surgery," I choked out, tears burning my eyes. How could they? Grandma set her spoon down, the clink echoing like a gavel. "They've always taken, Quinn," she said, her voice low but fierce. "But this time, they'll pay for it." I looked at her, this woman who'd held me through my parents' fights, who'd taught me to balance a checkbook when Dad blew our grocery money on investments. She was right, but the sting of that note, its casual tone, the smug "you'll forgive us," cut deeper than any knife. I flashed back to my cubicle in Seattle, the glow of my monitor as I finalized the AI algorithm, the pride when my boss handed me the bonus check. I'd texted Dad about it, so I was excited to secure Grandma's surgery. He'd replied, "Proud of you, kid." Now I saw it. He wasn't proud. He was scheming. I grabbed my phone, desperate to confront them. Dad's number went to voicemail, his cheerful greeting a mockery. Chloe did the same, her bubbly voice twisting the knife. Then I opened Instagram, and there they were, grinning in a Reno casino, neon lights glinting off their drinks, Chloe's wrist flashing a new watch, Dad's arm around her like they'd hit the jackpot. My money, their party. They're living it up while you're eating leftovers, I spat, showing Grandma the screen. Her lips tightened, a flicker of anger crossing her face. They left me here because I'm too frail for their adventure, she said, her tone bitter but resolute. But we're not frail, Quinn. We'll make them regret this. The betrayal sank in, a slow-motion crash in my mind's eye. I remembered Dad's promises, always one big deal, away from fixing everything, and Chloe's fake tears when she borrowed my savings for art supplies, only to show up with new boots. I'd trusted them, left them on my joint account from college days, thinking family meant safety. Now that trust was ash, and the kitchen felt like a crime scene, the note a murder weapon. I looked at Grandma, her hands folded calmly, and felt a spark ignite. We're not just getting the money back, I said, my voice low, trembling with rage. They're going to feel this. Reflecting now, that moment was like a close-up in a film. The note in my hand, Grandma's steely gaze, the hum of the fridge like a ticking clock. In my corporate world, I'd faced backstabbing colleagues, bosses who took credit for my work, but nothing prepared me for this. Family was supposed to be my anchor, not the storm that sank me. Yet as I sat there, the cold seeping through my jacket, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about the money. It was about who I'd let them make me. A doormat, a pushover, the good daughter who always forgave. Not anymore. Grandma's words echoed, "They'll pay." And I knew, as the snow fell outside, that this was the start of my fight, not just for justice, but for myself. The crumpled note lay on the kitchen table, a grenade with the pin pulled, and I was still reeling from its blast. Grandma Margaret's words, "They'll pay," echoed in my head. But as I sat there, the flickering neon light above casting jagged shadows across the linoleum, rage gave way to something heavier, despair. I'm Quinn Harper, 29, a data analyst from Seattle, and I'm telling you this as a survivor, not a victim. Though that Christmas, I hit rock bottom. The betrayal of my dad, Richard, and my sister Chloe, stealing my $20,000 bonus, money meant for Grandma's heart surgery, felt like a slow-motion gut punch. The kind you see in movies where the hero's world shatters in one brutal frame. I slumped in the chair, the wood creaking under me, the cold seeping through my jacket like the chill of their betrayal. My phone screen glowed with their Instagram posts. Dad's arm around Chloe, their smiles glinting under Reno's casino lights. A new watch on her wrist, paid for with my blood, sweat, and code. I worked my ass off for that money, I muttered, my voice cracking as I slammed my fist on the table, the sound sharp in the empty house. 3 years of late nights at the tech firm, debugging algorithms, fighting for my AI project in boardrooms, all for that bonus to save Grandma. Now it was gone, frittered away on their latest sure thing real estate scam. The kitchen smelled of stale mashed potatoes and loss, the silence louder than any holiday cheer I'd imagined. I flashed back to my childhood, scenes flickering like an old film reel. Dad's promises of big deals that always fell apart, my college fund drained for his investment in a shady startup. His sheepish, life's tough kid, when I confronted him. Chloe, 3 years younger, with her fake tears and I'll pay you back lies. Borrowing cash for art supplies that turned into designer jeans. I'd trusted them, kept them on my joint account from college days, believing family meant loyalty. God damn it, I was so stupid, I whispered, tears burning my eyes. The note's smug, "You'll forgive us," stung worse than the theft itself. Like they knew I'd always been the good daughter, the one who cleaned up their messes. Grandma watched me, her frail hands folded, her eyes sharp despite the heart condition that made every breath a battle. "They've always taken, Quinn," she said, her voice low but fierce, cutting through the haze of my grief. She leaned forwards, the light catching the silver strands in her hair. When I was your age, my best friend swindled me out of my savings for a bakery, left me with nothing but shame. Her words hit hard, a mirror to my own pain. I saw her then, not just as my grandma, but as a survivor of her own betrayals, her strength a quiet fire. You don't heal by crying, she added. You fight or they win. Her story cracked something open in me. I remembered the corporate grind, colleagues stealing credit, bosses dismissing my work, and how I'd learned to push back, to demand my place. But family, that was supposed to be sacred. Yet here I was staring at the wreckage of that illusion. The note, the Instagram posts, the empty bank account. They weren't just theft. They were a declaration that I didn't matter. My chest tightened, a sob catching in my throat. They left you here, eating fucking leftovers while they're partying with my money, I said, my voice rising, raw with hurt. Grandma nodded, her lips tight. They think you're weak, Quinn. Prove them wrong. That moment was my lowest, like a scene where the camera zooms in on the hero's tear-streaked face, the world blurring around them. I felt like I was drowning, the weight of their betrayal pulling me under. But Grandma's words were a lifeline, sharp and unyielding. I thought of my cubicle in Seattle, the glow of my monitor as I fought for every line of code, the pride when I secured that bonus. I'd texted Dad about it, so sure he'd be proud. Now I saw his proud of you kid for what it was, a predator's grin. Reflecting now, I see that kitchen as the crucible where my old self, the trusting, forgiving Quinn, burned away. The pain was real, but so was the spark igniting inside me. I wiped my tears, my hands shaking but resolute. I'm not just getting the money back, I said, my voice low, a vow to myself as much as to Grandma. They're going to regret this. She smiled, a glint of steel in her eyes, like she'd been waiting for this version of me to show up. Outside, the snow fell harder, blanketing Boise in a quiet that felt like the calm before a storm. I didn't know how yet, but I was done being their doormat. This wasn't just about the $20,000. It was about reclaiming my worth, and I'd make sure they felt every ounce of it. The kitchen felt like a war room as I wiped the tears from my face, the crumpled note from Dad and Chloe still lying on the table like evidence at a crime scene. Grandma Margaret's words, prove them wrong, burned in my chest, a spark turning into a blaze. I'm Quinn Harper, 29, a data analyst from Seattle, and I'm telling you this as a survivor, someone who hit rock bottom and clawed her way back. That Christmas, after learning my father and sister stole my $20,000 bonus, money meant for Grandma's heart surgery, for their failed real estate scam, I wasn't just hurt. I was done being their doormat. The Boise snow fell harder outside, blanketing the world in silence, but inside me, a storm was brewing, and I was ready to unleash it. I pulled my laptop from my bag, its weight familiar from countless nights coding in my Seattle cubicle. The kitchen's neon light buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the chipped table as Grandma sat across from me, her frail hands steady, her eyes sharp with purpose. We're calling it Operation Payback, I said, my voice low but firm, a vow carved in the air. She nodded, a faint smile curling her lips, like a general approving a battle plan. I started gathering evidence, my fingers flying across the keyboard like I was debugging a critical error at work. Bank statements showed the 19th von 150 withdrawal 4 days ago. I saved screenshots of their Instagram posts, Chloe's new watch glinting under Reno's casino lights, Dad's smug grin over a cocktail. I dug up the email I'd sent Dad, gushing about the bonus for Grandma's surgery, and his reply, proud of you, kid. That lie stung worse than the theft. Grandma leaned over, her voice cutting through the hum of my laptop. Call Lisa, she said, naming her old friend, a lawyer who'd seen her through tough times. She'll know how to hit them where it hurts. I dialed Lisa, explaining the theft in a rush, my words tumbling like a confession. She was calm, professional, but her tone hardened when I mentioned the note's taunt. "You'll forgive us." "That's theft, Quinn," she said. "We can draft a repayment agreement, maybe even pursue charges." I hung up, my pulse racing, and started digging deeper. A quick online search revealed Dad's history of shady real estate deals in Boise. Failed projects, unpaid partners, whispers of fraud. It was a goldmine, and I felt a grim satisfaction, like a detective uncovering the villain's secrets in a noir film. Our plan took shape under the flickering light, sharp and calculated. When Dad and Chloe returned, I'd lock them out, force a confrontation at a public diner on Main Street, and hit them with evidence, bank records, their note, their damning social media posts. I'd demand a legally binding repayment agreement with interest, backed by Lisa's expertise. If they refused, I'd threaten to expose Dad's shady past to his business buddies, maybe even file a police report. "I'm not just getting the money back," I told Grandma, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and resolve. "I want them to feel this, to know they fucked with the wrong person." She chuckled, a dry, knowing sound. "Hit their pride, Quinn. That's their weak spot." She slid a small notebook across the table, its pages yellowed, filled with her neat handwriting. "Your dad's taken from me too," she said, pointing to entries, dates, amounts, promises, unpaid. Pension checks, jewelry, excuses. I flipped through it, my stomach churning. Dad had borrowed thousands over the years, leaving Grandma to scrape by. "Use it," she urged, her eyes glinting like steel. "Show them you're not their little girl anymore." I nodded, the notebook heavy in my hands, a weapon forged from her pain and mine. I locked the joint account, ensuring they couldn't touch another cent, and backed up every piece of evidence to a cloud drive, just like I'd secured data at work. Reflecting now, that night feels like a movie montage. The hero gearing up, plotting revenge under a dim light, the stakes rising with every beat. I thought of my corporate battles, standing up to colleagues who tried to steal my ideas, learning to say no in a world that rewarded yes. But this was different. This was family, the people who'd shaped me, who I'd trusted despite their flaws. The note's smugness, their casino photos, Grandma's cold leftovers, they weren't just theft. They were a betrayal of everything I'd believed in. Yet as I typed, as Grandma's voice steadied me, I felt a shift. I wasn't just fighting for the money. I was fighting for my worth, for the Quinn who'd been buried under years of forgiveness. The snow outside thickened, muffling the world, but the kitchen was alive with our resolve. "They think I'll cave," I said, closing my laptop, the screen's glow fading. "They're wrong." Grandma squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "You're my girl," she said, pride in her voice. "Show them what you're made of." That moment, under the buzzing light, was when I stopped being a victim. I was a survivor, plotting not just justice, but retribution, ready to make them regret every second of their betrayal. The fight was on, and I was all in. The snow was falling thicker now, cloaking Boise in a hush that felt like the world holding its breath. I stood by the front door, my heart pounding like a war drum, the security camera feed on my phone, showing Dad and Chloe trudging up the driveway, their faces smug under the streetlight's glow. I'm Quinn Harper, 29, a data analyst from Seattle, and I'm telling this as a survivor, someone who stared into the abyss of betrayal and walked out stronger. 3 days after I found Grandma Margaret eating cold leftovers, and that damning note revealing Dad and Chloe stole my $20,000 bonus for their failed real estate scam, it was time to face them. Operation Payback was locked and loaded, and I wasn't just fighting for the money meant for Grandma's heart surgery. I was fighting for my goddamn dignity. I'd locked the front door, the new keypad blinking red, a barrier as firm as my resolve. "Open the door, Quinn," Dad bellowed, banging on it, his voice muffled through the wood. Chloe's face appeared on the camera, her designer scarf askew, whining. "It's freezing out here." I pressed the intercom button, my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. "Want in?" Meet me at the Main Street Diner in 20 minutes. Bring some honesty for once. Dad's face reddened. His fist raised like he'd break the door down, but I held firm, clutching the folder of evidence, bank statements, their note, screenshots of their Reno casino spree. Grandma sat in her recliner, her frail frame wrapped in a shawl, her eyes glinting with approval. "Give 'em hell, Quinn," she said, her voice a quiet fire. The diner was a time capsule, its chipped formica tables and neon open sign glowing like a scene from a gritty drama. I sat in a corner booth, Lisa, Grandma's lawyer friend, beside me, her silver bob sharp as her legal mind. The folder lay between us, a weapon ready to fire. Outside, snow dusted the sidewalk, catching the streetlights in a soft blur. Dad and Chloe stormed in, their faces a mix of defiance and exhaustion, like villains caught off guard. Dad's coat was rumpled, Chloe's makeup smudged, but their arrogance clung like cheap cologne. "This is ridiculous, Quinn," Dad snapped, sliding into the booth. "We're family. Open the damn door." Chloe nodded, her eyes darting away. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I opened the folder, my hands steady despite the storm inside. "You stole $20,000 from my account," I said, voice low and sharp, sliding the bank statement across the table. "Money for Grandma's heart surgery. You spent it on a scam and partied in Reno." I slapped down the screenshots. Chloe's new watch, Dad's cocktail grin. The diner's hum faded, the clink of coffee cups distant as their faces paled. "That's not true," Chloe stammered, her voice cracking. "We were going to pay you back." Dad leaned forward, his sales pitch tone kicking in. "It was a family investment, Quinn. A chance to fix our name. You'd understand if you weren't so selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed, bitter and raw. "You left Grandma with cold leftovers, knowing she needs surgery. You mocked me in that note. You'll forgive us." "Fuck that." Lisa pushed the repayment agreement forward, her voice crisp. "Sign this. Repay $20,000 with interest, starting with liquidating assets, your car, Chloe's designer crap. Or we file for theft and expose Richard's shady deals." I slid Grandma's notebook across, open to the page listing Dad's unpaid loans from her pension. His eyes widened, a flicker of shame breaking his bravado. "You've been fleecing her for years," I said, my voice cutting like a blade. "Not anymore." The booth felt like a courtroom, the fluorescent lights harsh as a spotlight. Chloe sobbed, mascara streaking, muttering, "I just followed Dad." He glared at her, then me, his jaw tight. "You'd ruin us over this?" he growled. I pulled out Grandma's note, her shaky handwriting a lifeline. "You're worth more than their lies." "You ruined yourselves," I said, leaning forward. "Sign or I go to the police and your business buddies hear about your frauds." The silence was deafening, the diner's chatter a distant murmur. Lisa tapped the agreement, her watch glinting. "Decide now." Dad's defiance crumbled, his shoulders slumping like a deflated balloon. Chloe signed first, her hand shaking, tears dripping onto the paper. Dad followed, his pen scratching like a confession. I felt a rush, not of joy, but of power, like a movie's turning point where the hero takes control. Reflecting now, that moment was my pivot. The instant I stopped being the good daughter and became the woman who fought back. I wasn't just reclaiming money, I was reclaiming me. As we left the diner, snow swirling under the streetlights, I knew nothing would be the same. Dad and Chloe trailed behind, silent, defeated. I'd won this round, but the fight wasn't over. I was ready to make them feel the weight of their betrayal, every step of the way. The diner's neon glow faded behind us as we stepped into the Boise snow. The signed repayment agreement tucked in my folder like a trophy, still warm from battle. I'm Quinn Harper, 29, a data analyst from Seattle. And I'm telling you this as a survivor, someone who walked through the fire of betrayal and came out forged anew. After forcing Dad and Chloe to face their theft, $20,000 of my hard-earned bonus, meant for Grandma Margaret's heart surgery, I felt a shift. like a movie's climax where the hero stands taller, unbroken. The confrontation had cracked their arrogance, but I wasn't done. This wasn't just about getting the money back. It was about making them feel the weight of their betrayal, about carving out a new me who'd never be their doormat again. Back at the house, the air was thick with tension, the living room dim under a single lamp's glow. Dad slumped on the couch, his face a mix of shame and defiance, while Chloe fidgeted, her eyes red from crying. I laid out the terms again, my voice steady as steel. You signed. Now you deliver. Sell the car, Chloe's bags, whatever it takes. First payment's due in a week. Dad muttered. This is humiliating, but I cut him off. Humiliating? Try eating cold leftovers while your family steals your lifeline. Grandma, perched in her recliner, nodded, her frail hands gripping a mug of tea, her presence a quiet anchor. I'd learned from my corporate battles, dealing with backstabbing colleagues, demanding accountability, that weakness invites exploitation. Now I was bringing that lesson home. I pushed them hard, like a director staging a scene for maximum impact. Dad's prized vintage Mustang, his pride and joy, went up for sale the next day, its red paint gleaming in the snowy driveway as buyers circled. Chloe's designer handbags, her Instagram trophies, hit eBay, each listing a stab at her vanity. By week's end, they'd scraped together $6,000, transferred to my new solo account, the joint one locked forever. I felt a grim satisfaction, like watching a villain's downfall in a film, but it wasn't enough. I needed to protect Grandma, to rebuild what they'd tried to destroy. I booked flights to Seattle, arranging for Margaret to move there for better medical care. Using my savings, I secured a deposit for her surgery. The hospital's sterile lights, a stark contrast to our Boise kitchen's gloom. Moving Grandma was like uprooting a tree, her roots deep in Boise's soil. We packed her essentials, photo albums, her favorite shawl, under the house's creaking rafters, the snow outside muffling the world. "You're sure about this?" she asked, her voice soft but steady, her eyes searching mine. "I'm sure," I said, squeezing her hand. "You're not eating leftovers again." I bought her a silver locket with our initials, paid for with that first $6,000, a symbol of our bond forged through this mess. Reflecting now, that locket was more than a gift. It was a marker of my rebirth, a promise to prioritize us over their chaos. In Seattle, under the city's gray drizzle, I settled Grandma into a small apartment near my place, her surgery scheduled at a top hospital. The corporate grind had taught me precision, backing up data, securing systems, and I applied it here, ensuring every payment from Dad and Chloe was tracked, every asset sale documented. They squirmed, Dad grumbling about family loyalty, Chloe whining about her image, but I held firm. "You made your choices," I told them over a tense call, the Space Needle looming outside my window. "Now live with them." I flashed back to my tech job, standing up to a colleague who'd tried to claim my work, learning that boundaries weren't cruelty, they were survival. Family was no different. Grandma, post-surgery, sat in her new recliner, her face brighter despite the hospital pallor. "You didn't just save me, Quinn," she said, her voice strong. "You saved yourself." Her words hit like a spotlight, illuminating the truth. This fight wasn't just about the money or even her surgery. It was about me, about refusing to let their betrayal define my worth. I'd spent years in Seattle's tech world, proving myself through data and deadlines, but this was bigger. I'd cut Dad and Chloe off financially, set ironclad boundaries, and reclaim my power. "Fuck being their ATM," I muttered, a smile creeping in as I watched the rain streak my window. Looking back, that victory felt like a movie's triumphant montage. The hero rising, the villains humbled, the world righting itself. The Boise house, once a haven, was now a battlefield, but I'd won. Dad and Chloe's payments kept coming, slow but steady, their pride battered. I'd transformed from the good daughter who forgave everything to a woman who demanded accountability. As Grandma recovered, her locket glinting in the Seattle light, I knew the fight wasn't over. They'd test me again, but I was ready. This wasn't just retribution, it was rebirth. A new Quinn forged in the fire of their betrayal, ready to face whatever came next. I'm sitting in my Seattle apartment, rain streaking the window like tears that no longer fall, as I tell you this story. I'm Quinn Harper, 29, a data analyst who walked through the fire of betrayal and came out stronger. A survivor with scars that tell a tale of triumph. That Christmas in Boise, when I found Grandma Margaret eating cold leftovers and a note revealing Dad and Chloe stole my $20,000 bonus money for her heart surgery, for their failed real estate scam, I thought I'd break. But here I am, months later, reflecting on a journey that wasn't just about getting justice. It was about finding myself, about learning that my worth isn't tied to the people who hurt me, but to the strength I forged in their wake. The victory at the Main Street Diner, where I forced Dad and Chloe to sign that repayment agreement, was only the beginning. Back in Seattle, with Grandma settled in her new apartment, her locket glinting under the soft glow of her reading lamp, I watched her grow stronger post-surgery. The hospital's sterile corridors, filled with the beep of monitors, felt like a new chapter. A stark contrast to the dim Boise kitchen where this all started. Dad and Chloe's payments kept coming, $6,000 up front from selling his prized Mustang and her designer bags, followed by slow, grudging installments. I tracked every cent like I tracked data at work, each deposit a reminder of their humbled pride. They called sometimes, Dad's voice tight with resentment, Chloe's laced with fake remorse, but I kept them at arm's length, my new solo bank account a fortress they couldn't breach. Looking back, I see that fight as a montage in a film. The heroes standing tall, the villains' faces falling, the world shifting into focus. I'd learned in Seattle's tech grind to guard my work, to call out colleagues who tried to steal my ideas, but family, that was supposed to be safe. Yet their betrayal, Dad's smug, "You'll forgive us," Chloe's casino selfies, taught me a harder truth. Family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you. I remembered nights in my cubicle, staring at my monitor, fighting for every line of code that earned that bonus. I thought it was for Grandma's heart, but now I know it was for mine too. Fuck letting them define me, I muttered one evening, watching the Seattle skyline blur in the rain, my reflection sharp in the glass. Grandma's recovery was my anchor. She'd sit in her recliner, knitting under a quilt I bought her, and say, "You didn't just save me, Quinn. You saved yourself." Her words were a spotlight, illuminating the change in me. I wasn't the good daughter who forgave every slight, who cleaned up their messes. I was a woman who'd drawn a line, sell the car, the bags, or face the cops, and held it. Reflecting now, I see that line as my salvation. In the corporate world, I'd learned to set boundaries to survive office politics, but applying that to family was a revelation. Dad and Chloe's betrayal wasn't just theft. It was a challenge to my worth, and I answered it by proving I was more than their punching bag. The Boise house faded from my life, a memory of a battlefield I'd won. I didn't go back for the next Christmas, choosing instead a quiet dinner with Grandma in Seattle, her apartment warm with the scent of roasted chestnuts. Dad sent a text, awkward and stilted, about making things right, but I didn't reply. Chloe posted less on Instagram. Her feed is no longer a parade of luxury. Their payments continued, each one a small victory, but the real win was internal. I'd reclaim my power, not just from them, but from the part of me that once thought love meant endless sacrifice. I thought of my tech job, where I'd fought for recognition and realized this was bigger. I'd fought for myself. So here's my question to you. Have you ever been stabbed in the back by family, the people you thought would never hurt you? How did you stand up, draw that line? I learned that vengeance isn't just about making them pay. It's about reclaiming your value, setting boundaries that scream you're worth more. In the cutthroat world of tech, I'd faced betrayal, colleagues taking credit, bosses dismissing my work, but nothing cut like family. Yet those wounds taught me resilience, the kind that builds you stronger than before. That Christmas, I didn't find the twinkling lights or gingerbread-scented home I'd dreamed of. Instead, I found a truth sharper than any knife. My worth isn't defined by those who betray me, but by how I rise. I stood in that diner, evidence in hand, and made Dad and Chloe see me. Not as their ATM, but as a force. As I sit here, rain tapping the window, Grandma's locket catching the light, I know I'm more than their mistakes. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it's the fire that forges you. It taught me I'm stronger than I ever knew, and that strength, found in the ashes of their lies, is the greatest gift I could have unwrapped. Hey, you've stuck with me through this wild ride, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm Quinn, and sharing this story, my fight, my scars, my comeback, means the world. So what about you? Ever had someone you trusted turn on you, maybe even family? How'd you find your strength? Draw that line. Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how you fought your own battles. Thank you for listening, for being here through the messy truth of it all. Let's catch up again soon, yeah? Until then, keep standing tall. You're worth it.